Okay, so hello, happy Tuesday, everyone. I'm Ceci Hartke. I'm the Director of Programs for Raising Special Kids, and I'm so happy to have you guys. Audra, Paletta, and Micah Stewart are here joining me today, and we have some questions for you both, but I do want to give the audience a little bit of background information. Both Audra and Micah are graduates of Arizona Youth Leadership Forum, which is a fun acronym, AZYLF. If you hear that, that's what that is. And so this is a conference that we do here in Arizona in the summer, not us raising special kids, but the program is for students, recent graduates, and or young adults with disabilities that want to develop leadership skills, self-confidence, future direction. So Raising Special Kids has information for you about this program and how you can get registered in our Monday memo, and it's on our Facebook page as well. So I do know that registration ends May 15th. So that's this Friday. So please take a look. I think there's 4 different sessions, 4 different dates, and the conference this summer is virtual, which is fantastic because of the time we're in. And so let's just go ahead and get started. Audra, tell me a little bit about you and how you got involved with the Leadership Forum.
Well, I'm Audra. I'm 22 years old. I live here in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm currently a student at Phoenix College studying social work, and I'm just kind of doing my own thing here with my family. I was 16 when I heard about it. When I first heard about AZYLF, I was a sophomore in high school, and I was recommended the program was recommended to me by my counselor. It was the first year that they were doing it, so this was brand spanking new, and my the director of the basically sending out these posters, flyers, to all the schools in the district that she could basically get a hold of to distribute the information. And I guess the vice principal of the school and my counselor saw it, and they thought it would be a good fit. So I did that's mainly how I got introduced to it. When I went through the process, because normally our program is a physical face-to-face program, but considering these circumstances, we've adjusted to accommodate the pandemic. It's an application process, there's a small interview process, and so on and forth. And the week I spent there, which is at the downtown ASU campus in Phoenix, the week I spent there was very life-changing. And I know a lot of people can say the same for that. And I guess in what we have been able to experience, I started getting more and more insight on the disability community and advocating for yourself and other youth who have disabilities. And I became very passionate about it. That's actually what inspired me to go to social work. But before all of that, I was 16, and that's just a very vulnerable age to be in, and there was a lot of insecurity about my disability because I have a hearing disability and I wear a cochlear on my right side. That's not something that can be hidden, And I was mainstreamed in a public school, and I was taking all these honors classes, and there really wasn't in my school. You didn't really hear about that kid from special education taking honors classes. That wasn't a thing. So I think this program really helped to boost my self-esteem. Was a big part of it, and it's just been almost 6 years, and it's a continuation of me going back. So.
Well, awesome! Thank you for sharing your story with us. All right, Micah, we want to hear your story. How did you get involved? Tell us a little bit about you.
All right. Hi there, I'm Micah Stewart. I'm 21, and I also attended AZYLF in 2014 with Audra. So I was referred to AZYLF by a former teacher of mine who I talked to. And, you know, one time she called up my parents and I and said, hey, I saw this program that's happening this summer. I think you should look into it. And so we did. And, you know, I went through the application process and spent part of my summer at ASU's downtown campus doing Arizona Youth Leadership Forum. It wasn't quite my first time, you know, like spending time away from my family, but it might have been the first event like that, and definitely the longest time up until that point. So a little bit nerve-wracking at first, but I found out pretty quickly that the environment at ACYLF was just unquestionably welcoming and supporting, which really eased that transition, I think. For me, AZYLF was something that kind of really changed my perspective, because I didn't have a lot of exposure to disabilities aside from my own. I spent most of my schooling in a special education classroom, but wasn't aware of many resources or anything outside of that. So it was definitely a big learning experience for me. And after AZYLF, I got involved with their alumni association and stayed in touch with AZYLF in that way, and have continued to do so for the last 6 years. And, you know, now here I am. I work with Diversibility Incorporated, which is the nonprofit that provides AZYLF. I'm a student at ASU studying computer information systems, and in my part-time, I like to play video games and practice martial arts.
Very cool. Okay, so just two regular teenagers doing, not even teenagers, you guys aren't teenagers anymore, but at the time.
Yeah,
started that. Well, that's cool. I mean, you know what, we're on this Facebook Live and we chatted a little bit before we went live, but I didn't realize that you guys were that first initial group that did this, which is really, really great. I worked with Melly, who runs the AZYLF, and so I've heard such wonderful things about it. And you know how I've met a couple of other graduates, and you guys are all so confident and well spoken, and I feel like it's hard to tell that experience helped transform you into that, but I mean, I can see that that's probably definitely an important part of your journey, right? So the questions that I have for you, I want to say, why was AZYLF important to you, but I feel like you guys already spoke to that a little bit. So I'll ask this. How did you guys feel like, how did it impact you as far as self-advocacy skills?
Well, I think a lot of it, well, you know, we sit down and we read a binder and we learn about what advocacy is and self-advocacy is and all that stuff, but it's a learning process. So I can't say that we just walked out of that dorm after 6 days and said, hey, I'm gonna advocate for myself. No, it doesn't really work like that. We had the support and the background we needed from the other people to gradually learn how to get there. And it's been 6 years, and there are days where Melly says to me, like, you gotta advocate for yourself because it's baby steps. But I think the reason why it's so easy to do it after this program is because you realize what kind of community you have. Like, we come from all over the state and we all have different backgrounds, and we all have, once, you know, we step out of that campus, our lives are totally different. That's just the way it is. But knowing that we have each other's backs, I think, was a big thing. So when I, you know, myself, when I was going through those phases of life, I, you know, hit rock bottom, or I needed to do something for myself, I didn't have the confidence to do it. It was usually like these people that helped me to realize I can do it and I need to do it, frankly. And I think, yeah, and just being able to keep practicing it in a safe setting, safe environment where you're not going to be judged. was also a big deal, because even though it may not be the same thing out in the real world, it was like kind of like practice makes perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Micah, what about you? Self-advocacy. Did you walk away with those skills? How did that?
Yeah, I think Audra hit the nail on the head when she said two things. One, that, self-advocacy is a skill that you learn and practice. And two, that one of the biggest impacts that AZYLF had for us was planting that seed of that skill, teaching us how to advocate for ourselves, and even providing a couple of specific skills and methods to do so, which I can touch on in a second. But after planting that seed, they kind of help to nurture it until it can stand on its own. And, it's that atmosphere and environment that celebrates diversity and who you are, not just as people with disabilities, but as people with all sorts of diversities. And I think knowing that you're in that environment where you are there for these people to help support you as you practice these skills is really empowering. And people walk away having, even if it's just for that week, knowing that they can do it, and then they can go on to do it themselves in their own life. And I mentioned earlier, giving that AZYLF gave us at least the beginnings of a skill set to use, with things like learning how to create our own person-centered plans and set goals for ourselves. That being one of the big things that AZYLF emphasizes. And I think the combination of getting a little toolbox of skills we can use and then the confidence to go out and use them is just huge.
Yeah, I love what you guys both said about self-advocacy as far as being like a journey, because as a mother of a child, 3 children, but one with some special needs, I'm constantly telling my kids, you guys need to advocate for yourself. And when they were really little, I mean, I've been in this sort of world of disability, so that word advocate has been in my vocabulary for a little bit, but when they were little, it was kind of a joke, if you will. Yeah, you need to advocate for yourself. Did you advocate for yourself? Did you get the popsicle that were you advocating for? But that turns into something different as you get older. And you're right, it's all about practice and getting confidence to continue to do it in a bigger way that truly impacts your life, right? So
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I feel like this is a really good time to stop and ask Neil, do we have any chat? I don't know, is anybody on Facebook Live right now? Cool. All right, well, I'll go on to my next question. So Raising Special Kids is a parent training information center. So we're dealing with families and we're talking to parents. And so I would love to get your perspective about why it was important for your parents to support you in this venture and what that looked like for you guys individually.
That's a good question. And it's actually funny because I am a parent, so I have that perspective as well. But I think at the time, I'm gonna be like totally honest. I don't have a good relationship with my parents. When I was growing up, with the whole IEP meetings and all that, my dad was the one who was primarily there. He took care of things. Once I got to high school, he kind of, realized he didn't say you're on your own, but he's like, okay, you can do this. You don't need me anymore. But when I started doing this, my mom is huge. My mom wanted me to do this thing. Like, she saw this as an opportunity for me to get something out of this. And boy, was she right. But I think over time, as I became more and more involved, they kind of became more and more detached. And I know that's really sad, but I think in this case with my parents, the support that I've gotten from them has been nice, but it's not been like instrumental to my work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's just the case for some people. And I'm not saying I wish my parents weren't more involved. I mean, I do, but it is what it is. And in cases that I think in the beginning with my mom's encouragement for me to go to AZYLF alone, I think that was probably better. I think that was a big push for me because I had been away from home, but not for a week. And I used to get homesick really badly. And my mom was like, "You're 16 years old. You need to go do this thing." And I was like, "Okay." But after that, you know, it just wasn't really a big contender for me to have my parents' support. But I do know that if I do something successful in my job career, because I work in, you know, I work for Melly, I work for the woman who runs all of this. It's I know that I can tell them, you know, some big success I have, and you know, they'll be happy for me. So
we're really proud of you, Audra. And I think we lost Micah. So I just want to, I know this conversation might be a little difficult, but just hear me out for a second. Do you feel like if you had not had the support of your mom or the push of your mom, would you have considered doing the forum?
I really do. I think, you know, I was 16. I was kind of at that point in my life where I wanted to be away from my parents all the time.
Very natural transition. Those are natural teenage moments, right?
I think I would have just been like, if I get homesick, I get homesick. I know. See you in a week.
Yeah. Well, it makes me happy to think that you took that step, and it was part of what helped, you know, put you on your path. So, all right, I'm going to keep going. If Micah jumps back on, we'll get his feedback. Okay. So again, back to the whole, you know, our audience tends to be parents. If you could say something to the parents listening right now, when they see these opportunities, what would you say to the parents who have children that, you know, would qualify for this leadership forum?
So this is a really good question. I've been asked this before by parents in a different, you know, context. I think, oh, he's back, so I'll just go ahead and zip through my answer. I think one thing I would say to those parents is like, it's very understandable that you would be scared. I'm a parent. My daughter is only 2, but she has hearing disability like I do. And there's just a lot of like very fearful things that come to mind is when she's about to start preschool and everything. So, but the reality is that your kid needs to know what it's like to be independent in one way or another. I would say like it's okay to be scared. It's okay to not want to let go. But in the end, if you don't let go, that's something that's not going to be good for the kid. When I was, you know, teenager, my dad was very overprotective. And and even now he still has those tendencies. And because he had such a hard time letting go, I think that really put a strain in our relationship. So in the end, and I just say to the parents, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to not want to let go. You have to let your kids make mistakes. That's how we learn and grow as human beings. And in the end, just remember, like, you were their parent, you were their mom, you were their dad. Like, they will, as long as you are there for them and you support them, they will come to you when they need you, but they need to learn how to do things by themselves, or at least by themselves with the assistance of others. So, and it's yeah, some parents don't like to hear that, but it is what it is. Like, I look at my kid. I'm like, I'm raising an adult. I'm not raising a kid. Like, she's gonna be my age someday, you know. And yeah,
you have to have that mindset. I just had a conversation this morning about that and how sometimes parents, we hinder our kids because we're scared and we want to protect them without realizing that sometimes those scary moments are where they grow the most. Those moments of discomfort, that's where we grow. I mean, it is what it is. This is a silly story, but I'm going to share it. So my son was nonverbal for quite a bit, up until maybe 4 or 5. And he started developmental preschool when he was 3. I followed that bus every single day because I was like, he's so cute. They're going to steal, like someone's going to take my beautiful son and he will not have a voice to, ask for help or scream or I don't know. It's silly. And granted, he was 3, but as years progress, he's 14 now. I find myself in those similar situations along the way. And so as a parent, I do need to sort of remind myself, let him be, let him go. He's gonna grow from these experiences. And sometimes it's harder for a parent, but we need to, back off a little bit. So Micah, we dropped you for a little second and I'll pull you back in. The question that I had was, I guess it's twofold. So first one is, how important was it for your parents to push you into the program? And also, if you had something to share with families and parents that are listening right now, what would you tell them about encouraging their kids?
Right. So I've been very lucky to have a set of very supportive parents in my life, and they certainly pushed me to attend AZYLF. They, saw it as an opportunity for me to grow, and possibly even to get a little bit of that advocacy experience and maybe a little bit of an idea of what I want to do in the future. Whether that be a goal for the next month or the next couple of years. So aside from the literal support of, getting me to and from the program, they really encouraged me both to attend AZYLF and to make the most out of it afterwards. I think I mentioned earlier, before my connection dropped for a minute, that I stayed involved with AZYLF through its alumni association and then subsequent other activities. And they were also a big factor in pushing me to, stay involved, even during those times where I felt like, it's my senior year of high school, I'm so busy, how am I even going to juggle this? Or when, I get a new hobby and it's eating up all of my free time, they're like, hey, remember that, you also committed to do this, don't forget that commitment that you made. So that was definitely a big way that they helped me. And then, oh darn it, I lost my train of thought. If it comes back to me, I'll say it.
What would you tell a parent that's thinking about it, but is maybe fearful or thinking, I don't know if it's a right fit, or all the things that pop up into our heads?
As the parents among us, I think you two hit it on the head, that, parenthood is the process of training, is, raising adults in training. And that, to support your kids in anything that, furthers that goal is definitely beneficial. I mean, if AZYLF can offer them something, then don't be afraid. They might come back with, new ideas, new skills, and maybe a couple new goals, but that's part of that growth process that you guys talked about.
Yeah.
So I think I'd echo what Audra said, and don't be afraid.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story, which we already talked a bit about. But so my goal, my thought is that my 14-year-old will one day also go to AZYLF and do wonderful things. But I mean, I do worry about like the logistics. You guys spending the night there? I know this is silly, but do you guys stay in the dorms?
Yeah. So I think I can answer that one. AZYLF is, hosted at, normally, not the summer, of course, but it's typically hosted at different college campuses around the state. I mentioned ASU's downtown campus, and, we stay in the dorms with a roommate, with staff members down the hall should we need anything. And then, we're eating from the school's cafeteria or dining halls and using their lecture halls and classrooms for activities. It's a pretty common thing that we hear that, parents are a little bit nervous to send their kids off for almost a full week, without seeing them until that week's up. But we always, can have a conversation with them and, walk them through like, hey, this is what we're doing for the logistics. This is how things are going to work. Do you have any concerns that we can help address to maybe ease your fears?
Yeah.
So I think communication with the families is a big part of that.
Well, and I'm, from a mom's standpoint, always worried about like the mixture of young people that are coming together. How big is the group? Everyone's coming in with a different sort of mindset and maybe social skills. That's from my personal perspective, for my son who struggles in that capacity, and picking up on social skills or social cues, and when to back off on the joke that he maybe said 2 or 3 times or silly things. But so how do you guys, how big is the group and how does that work?
I think I can answer that. So if we were to do it in a normal setting, right now we only know so much about our virtual platform because we are readjusting everything to fit virtual platform. But if we were talking about a normal summer where we would spend time up the campus, how this works is, of course, it depends on the region we're in, but we have max 25 people, I believe, on the larger scale. But to fit that, we have approximately at least 15 staff members to accommodate that group. We have a large group setting, which we don't spend that much time in our large groups. When we have like a guest speaker, or if we're having meals, or if we're doing some sort of group activity or something to that capacity, then we'll do our large groups. But we mainly do small groups. We're actually looking at about 4 to 5 participants in ratio to about 3 or 4 staff. So not only do you have a team leader who's obviously there to help teach the curriculum, but you also have 2 to 3 other people who are trained in knowing how to accommodate our participants to help them make sure that they understand what's going on, and help them with reading, writing, taking whatever it is they need. So we understand that it can be overwhelming to do big groups, from certain disabilities, like being on the spectrum, or somebody who has a sensory disability both get sensory overload very quickly. So we do make those adjustments for those situations. So that's why. So I want to say we spend about 40% of our time in a big group setting, and then 60% of our time in small group settings.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to add something onto that real quick.
Yeah.
Also, all of our staff members are also people with disabilities, and having both that experience and being able to say, hey, I get it, you're having a sensory overload. It's okay, step away for a minute, that's fine, you can take a minute. And also having that wide range of experiences for participants to both learn from, and hopefully that, you know, they can relate to some of the staff members and kind of get that element of mentorship in there from someone who understands what it's like. I think that's also a big part of easing the transition to a new environment like ACYLF.
And it's not just that, pretty much all of our staff are young adults. So they're around Micah and I's age. So they're 18 to maybe 29. And they've all been through Arizona Youth Leadership Forum. So that's part of what makes it flow so easily, is that the staff know what they're doing. They've literally been through it before. They know the program at the back of their hand. And that's how they're able to make adjustments and accommodate to our participants, because they know how important it is. And I think as far as I know, like ACYLF is probably one of the only mainly youth-led programs in the state, and maybe even in the nation. It's pretty cool. And just then that goes back to like having that support system, and that having like those people being role models, because it's, hey, you got to this point and now you're this age and you're doing this stuff with your life. Like we've found that it's very encouraging to our participants, and it's easier for them to become more comfortable in their settings, and to feel more inclined to share, rather than, you know, sitting with a bunch of adults, like 30 plus adults who don't really understand what they need.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you 100%. Like that shared lived experience of saying, I've been there, I've been here before, and being close in age to be able to say, I know what you're going through. It just, I mean, I'm sure as young people, you can relate to your parents trying to tell you a concept, and then having a buddy or someone closer to your age saying almost exactly the same thing as mom and dad, but it flows better, right? From a peer. And that's okay. Like that's part of life. And it's great that we've recognized that, so that these young people that are out there learning new things are doing it from other young people that are also have a shared experience, and that can also just give them confidence to, you know, ask real candid questions and be real with you guys and say, you know, this is maybe what I'm dealing with, and how did you, you know, navigate through this. And so it's really, really cool that you guys are doing this. I'm going to take a pause again and ask Neil if we have any questions in the chat.
Yes and no. I think for some of us it comes very naturally, because me, I just talk all the time. Like, I don't shut up.
The gift of God.
But I think it ties into what Micah said about further involvement. Like, it's not just the program itself. Yes, it teaches you like self-advocacy, self-determination, confidence, and all this stuff, but to continue to be a part of it afterwards, to continue in like the alumni association and the other leadership initiatives that we have, is what kind of to that up to that point. So Micah mentioned like our alumni association, and there's an executive committee that oversees that, and Micah and I were the inaugural co-chair. So we kind of had experience from like 2015, where we were public speaking on behalf of our organization. And then as the years go by, with the help of our boss, and just like practice, we get to a point where it's basically nothing. It's just something you do all the time. And I feel like that's applicable to anyone who may have that like natural, you know, extroverted personality, where it's easier for them to be in front of an audience. I can't really say, I don't really know. I know for other people, they just tried it and maybe they didn't like it, but then they tried it again after a while, and then just slowly were comfortable with it. So it's not just the program or the opportunities, it's also like opportunities we give ourselves to try and let ourselves fail and succeed.
Yeah, I agree with Audra there. AZYLF itself as the week-long event is helpful, but a week isn't long enough to really get a lot of practice with speaking, you know? I think it might be best to look at AZYLF as a way to get your foot in the door or to start and find more ways to practice, if that were a skill that you wanted to build. Right. So
I'll let Micah take this one. He's better at explaining this than I am.
So obviously we have our applications open right now on our website, azylf.org. And then we have our Facebook page and other social media that we do some outreach on. Oftentimes we meet people through schools, you know, teachers will hear about us. I've personally gone to a lot of, excuse me, a lot of transition fairs and other similar events where we're meeting a lot of educators, a lot of professionals, a lot of parents and families as well. And that's how we meet a lot of people. As for anything that comes after AZYLF, you know, that's just a matter of talking to people at the conference and, you know, expressing any interest. You know, we love to hook people up with opportunities. So if we sniff one out for you, you can almost be guaranteed that we'll share it. %, yeah.
I didn't catch half of that, but that's just because I can't hear. So maybe when I'm, no, it's because I'm a lip reader, so that's why. Like pertaining to the program or just in general? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think we've been asked that before. I think for me, a lot of it was just being super open-minded. I mean, I've always been a pretty non-judgmental person, but you're kind of going into an environment where I got out of my little neighborhood, you know, and I was exposed to all these like new disabilities and all these people, and I was kind of shy at the time. I was uncomfortable. That's the word. I was uncomfortable, and that didn't take long for it to stop, because as soon as I like really started getting to know people the first or second day, that it was out the window. It was gone. None of that. But I think that's also a very general answer, is having to be open-minded to the people you're going to meet, especially for those who may not have as much exposure to several disabilities in the same room at the same time. And feeling like you feel kind of like you're kind of isolated, even though you're in a room full of people who are in the same community as you. And so I think for me it was being open-minded, and I think another was like this was more of a progression thing, but with each year I was part of it in some way. Participated in the first year, or I was a guest speaker, or I was a staff member. I had to, there were points where I had to like stop being so bossy. I had to kind of, I had to start listening more. I had to do this, I had to do that. It's like, it's a challenge every time. It really is. So it doesn't stop just that first year. But I think it's done me a lot of good. I think it really has.
I'd say for me, the biggest challenge I experienced was actually when I first attended ACYLF, I had a huge fear of public speaking. And ironically, right? But at the time, I was so nervous before speaking up in the small group settings, even, when it was just 4 or 5 people. And when I got a lot of like positive affirmation and reassurance, the first time I did speak up, I think that really made speaking up the next time easier. And at the end of that week, we give little campaign speeches and elect a leadership team. The participants elect from themselves a leadership team that, goes on to do some other stuff. But I did that the year I attended ACYLF, and that stage fright was bad. Yeah. The fear of crowds and public speaking was definitely my challenge. Practice makes perfect, right? Off the top of my head, it's fairly even between boys and girls. Again, yeah, it's honestly a pretty even mix, both between ages, genders. I don't think that there's a dominant group very much.
What was the question? Mm-hmm. Like Micah said, it depends on the year. Sometimes we have mostly guys, sometimes we have mostly girls. But to be very honest, we're not a group that turns away based on gender, age, race. Well, age, once you hit 30, that you can't apply, but like race, religious preference, sexual orientation, gender identity, we're not the group that turns people away based on that. So I think the mix, when one just be based on the demographics of where you are, and what just happens to come into our palette summer.
Okay, thanks, Neil. I want to say, Audra, thank you so much for mentioning the open-mindedness about, being exposed to other disabilities, because I feel like that is a real legitimate fear. And I think I'm speaking for my child, that is always sort of his fear of, what does that look like? And I don't know what that's going to look like, but the whole idea is you're open to it. You need to, we're all in this world together. We can figure it out together, right? We're all different, disability or not. We're all going to have our strengths. We're all going to have situations in our life where we could use a little help and a little bit support. And so I appreciate you being honest about that, because I think it's one of those real things that people maybe don't always say out loud. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I think we got through all our questions. Do you guys want to share any last thought before we part?
No, but 1 second. My partner was about to leave without me, and I was telling her no, don't leave without me. I guess just to the program, as in terms of the program, it's been 6 years and I'm still very involved in every capacity that I could possibly be in, even at this point in my life, because I'm 22 years old, I'm in school, I have a kid, we live with my partner. I'm in a very grown-up life, I guess you could say, but I still try to actively participate in not only in the conference itself, but in the opportunities that are granted afterwards, after 6 years. And I do want to say that it does lead to so many opportunities, so many public speaking engagements, so many conferences. I've been out of 2 out-of-state conferences, and I was just and I'm the vice chair on the statewide independent living council. So then that's a pretty major council in the state of Arizona for the disability community. And just having gone through this program, and that what introduced me to those opportunities, and it allowed room for growth. It allowed me to find my way, so to say. And so I think it's just really important to remember that something that might seem like you're really afraid of, or something that might seem small, you have no idea what will come out of it in the years. You really don't.
Thanks, Audra.
Mm-hmm.
Micah, do you have any parting thoughts?
Audra covered a lot of it, but I'd say keep in mind that Arizona Youth Leadership Forum is something that really fosters appreciation for diversity and for yours and everyone else's unique identities. That's one of our main goals. We want people to leave feeling just a little bit more comfortable in their skin and feeling like they have just a little bit more control over their life and their choices. So I hope that at least a couple of the people listening feel like they might be able to gain some of that in their life and would consider looking us up. Thank you.
Thank you, Micah. Thank you, Audra, so much. Honestly, it was such a pleasure to meet you guys. I am going to sit down and have my son watch this. I'm going to say these two cool people are telling you that it's a thing to do. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. I do want to do a little plug before we run off. Raising Special Kids does have a Transition Institute that we do every year, and this will be our 5th year. We have obviously did it in person in the past. We'll do it virtually this year. AZYLF has partnered with us, as well as other Arizona organizations. So we're really excited about that. And it's just another opportunity for us as parents to get together. We can share opportunities that are here available in our state. We can help you with some resources on how we can better help our youth to sort of transition and get into the path that follows them, employment and education and all the stuff that happens after they leave the nest, so to speak. And so we do also offer a whole lot of other trainings. And if anybody has any questions, please look into our website. We're raisingspecialkids.org. Facebook is really up to date with everything that we've got going on as well. And we are always answering the phone. We're happy to take phone calls and just answer questions and help in any way we can. So thank you guys for joining us, and we look forward to meeting up with you guys again soon.
Thank you so much for having us. It was an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.